Hi, I'm Linda, and welcome to the Sister Girls Environmental Justice TV show. Today, my plaintiff is Miss Jones, and my defendant is Gordon. Miss Jones, please tell us your side of the story.
Where should I start? I don't even know where to go first, Judge. But I'm just going to tell you what's going on here. All right, with this one. First of all, he got a thing with cutting trees down. I don't think he even know how important trees really is. You know what I mean? I don't know if he ever been a kid that, that had a tree or hugged a tree or adopted a tree. You ever heard of adopting a tree? Kids adopt trees. They care about trees because trees are important, And all he does is cut down. I don't know if he's using a buzzsaw or a hacksaw or a hatchet, but he's cutting trees down and it's just not good for the environment. It's just not good.
So where is he cutting these trees down? Is it in your yard? Is it in your neighborhood? Where?
Well, not just in my yard or neighborhood, not just mine, because I'm an environmental specialist, of the community. So, I'm gonna run it down to you, all right? Because I got a lot of issues and complaints, not just mine, but other people too in the community too. So it's not just me, okay? First of all, when he cut the trees down, it affects the squirrels. Squirrels throw their nuts in there. Birds have their nest in there and what have you. Even the owls hoot up there and everything. But he just cut trees down. What I don't like is he doesn't see the beauty of the trees. Trees are beautiful. They give off oxygen and beauty. I had one time where we used to drive, my husband and I used to drive down the street, and when it snowed or the snow would fall and it would be icy on the trees, it looked like beautiful diamonds. I love that kind of thing. We went to drive down that street, and honey, wasn't no trees on that street, and I know it was him. It was him. I know it was him because I didn't see the beauty of it all. And when I found out it was him, I said I knew I had to bring him to the judge. What you say about? I knew I had to bring him to the judge, right?
Okay, so Gordon, what do you say about this, about you? Do you cut down the trees or?
Well, Judge Linda, I appreciate you allowing me the opportunity to explain my side of the story. I'm sorry that it had to come this point to resolve this issue in your court. I tried repeatedly to talk to Miss Jones and to resolve this issue. That's one of the problems, is one of the conflicts. We have to resolve our conflicts. It's conflict resolution skills and to demonstrate coping skills, and as somebody having an appropriate response or an inappropriate response. And we're right here on Casino Boulevard, and this is the Casino Park was the Parsons estate, and that was we're in Flushing right now, which is the horticultural center of the world at one time. And some of the oldest specimen trees are here, some of the oldest ginkgo biloba trees, chestnut trees, and there's a whole university and school of arborism that you study about trees. And Miss Jones is right about the beauty of the trees. But many of the trees, sometimes they need to be pruned or trimmed back. We had a very serious problem here one time with the insects. There was a Japanese beetle, or I forgot which sort of a beetle. It had attacked all the evergreen trees, all the as opposed to the deciduous trees that lose their leaves. The evergreens, they stay green year-round. And part of that disease is, unfortunately, the trees are dead. And if you don't prune the trees properly, that could also contribute to harming the tree's health. The trees have to be watered constantly. Sometimes we have droughts, and global warming, which we're experiencing now, is causing more disease in trees by not having enough water. And I'm encouraging the neighbors and friends to go out and to water their trees. I'm an absolute tree hugger. I've studied the science of trees, and I do love trees, but unfortunately many of the trees are diseased and they do have to be taken down. They could be a hazard to pedestrians. There was just in this morning's news, there was a tornado over in New Jersey where a tree had fallen through the bedroom in someone's house, and they were just glad that they were not sleeping in the house.
Did you go cut that one down?
No, it was a tornado, and that had taken the tree down. And there's a bit of an art and a science, and I do love trees, and they are magnificent. And many people don't know that the trees do communicate through their they give off pheromones and hormones where
Yes.
through the air.
Yeah.
We know how they're pollinated, and I'm a devout tree lover, Your Honor, and I'd never honestly, maliciously intend to hurt a tree or do damage.
Well, did you hear that tree speaking or giving off a vibe when you chopped it down? The one by Mrs. Greenbaum's house? Oh, poor Mrs. Greenbaum had that tree a long time. She planted it when her grandchildren were born. Next thing I know, plow, the tree was gone. She was very upset. She came to me in tears. I didn't know what to say or do.
That's the real heartache of this, is that we do feel for these trees, and unfortunately it was diseased, and the city had issued the right permits. They have an arborist that comes out and examines the trees. If the tree is healthy, you wouldn't want to destroy a healthy specimen tree, but the city had condemned it, and I felt very bad because I was there and I embraced her, and I felt sorry for her and how she felt. But the tree was diseased, and it was either going to fall on her home or possibly on a pedestrian, and that was one of the reasons that tree was taken down. It's unfortunate.
So when you say that you prune the trees, is it that you cut all of the trees that you say are diseased down, or do you just prune them?
Both, Your Honor. It's done scientifically. There's a certain art. You just cannot go out and prune the trees in the city. You actually have to have a special certificate, and you have to learn how to prune the trees properly. And in the city of New York, if you were to call 311, you'd be able to get information on this, and they'll actually give you a free course on how to prune the trees properly, for such as electrical wires. The trees go up into the overhead wiring. Trees grow up into covering lights, into all sorts of hazards to pedestrians and to traffic. It's done scientifically. It's not just done haphazardly, Your Honor.
First of all, it should have been a meeting or something to talk to the community about what he was doing. That's why that petition over there on your desk, mostly everybody in the block in the community has signed that, because I didn't get a paper from him or a notice from him or invitation from him. I don't know what he's talking about. But I do know I'm here to speak for the community. I'm here to speak for myself and the community. And since he lived in it, I would have been speaking for him, but he's wrong. If he wasn't wrong, I'd be speaking for him, but he's wrong.
Now, when you say that in the community itself, that these trees are being chopped down and that it's affecting the community, is it on city property, or is it on like the space of land in front of the person's house that it's the person's property too?
Okay, some of them are in private properties, okay, like Miss Greenbaum's. Hers was a private one, you know what I mean? Because she was able to plant the tree and everything, you know. Yeah, but what it is some of them is on, the state and, the city property things too. It's still for, for the beauty and the oxygen and everything. And he could do it better than what he's doing, okay? Instead of hurting or harming or anything, I think he just should be able to do it better, or this petition wouldn't have been sent around or signed or anything like that. I'm not trying to do anything behind his back or take him down or anything like, well, maybe take him down, but I'm not trying to do that if he was doing the right thing. Since he's a tree hugger, he got to act like a tree hugger. A tree hugger wouldn't take a tree down that shouldn't go down. Mm-hmm. So if he did get something that was rotten and couldn't be treated, that's understandable. But for the good ones or the beautiful ones or the ones, because you got your oak tree, you even got apple trees and, all kind of type of trees, even some trees with flowers on them, so I just don't know. It just feels butchered to me, you know what I mean? Like a butchering kind of thing to me.
So in New York, if there was a tree that was dying or deceased or anything like that, a property owner is responsible for all the trees on their own property. So more specifically,
yes,
the trees the trunk itself on the property, because there's such thing as overhang where maybe a branch or two is on another person's, but where the trunk is usually whose property it's on.
Yes.
And so ownership of the tree, so ownership means like whose tree it technically belongs to, is where the trunk is located.
Yes.
Regardless of branches don't exactly matter, because again, it's where the trunk is. So if the trunk was on that person's property, then it was that person's responsibility to make sure that if the tree died, then, or the tree was sick or anything like that, if the tree was about to fall or it was any kind of hazard, that was that person's responsibility. So if it was tell me, did you cut down any trees that were on private property?
Absolutely, Your Honor.
Okay.
See?
Absolutely.
He's on my radar. He is on my radar. My eyes is watching him. I've always been watching him.
They are on private property. And as Ms. Jones clearly said, as far as community meetings and people getting together, that is an excellent idea. And I'd be willing and happy to talk to any community meeting at all. But it's not actually within the purview or the realm of my responsibilities as a person that's responsible for cutting down the trees. This is something that the community should really go to their local city council members and to call up 311 and find out who your community city council member is, and your local state senator and your local assembly people, and to contact them and to have a better communication. This is a great idea, Ms. Jones having this idea, this petition. This is the right way to resolve your problems. But as a person that's limited in what the scope and realm of my responsibilities are, that's something that's really not my thing to go to community meetings. Unless I was invited, I'd be happy to accommodate them.
Okay. Well, if you are cutting down trees that are on the person's property and it's bothering them, that's between not you and the city, but more of you and them on the fact that you're cutting down their private property. However, it's not as much of the city's responsibility if it's on private property. Now, if the tree was to hurt someone, like you said, for God forbid, fall on a pedestrian, hurt their house, well, obviously if they hurt their house, then it's not as big of a problem, but it doesn't have to involve any third party. But if a person, what I'm trying to say is, it's not your responsibility to cut down people's private property, because it would be their fault and their fault alone. If that tree had fallen, had caused any damage, it would be their fault. So you're not entitled. You don't have to. Now, if it was on city property, which is kind of worse, then that just means that you need to put in a certificate. You need to call, like you said, 311 and go to the Department of Environmental, like the environmental department, and tell them that, hey, this tree is sick, dying, whatever, and they will give you either the permit or they will bring someone over to cut down that tree.
Oh, yes, it's all been certified. I've been doing this for years, and you're absolutely right. As far as on somebody's personal property, they called me and hired me to cut down those trees. And as a certified arborist that has to document if this tree should be taken down or not. It's not something that's just done casually and you just go over. And also on the city, we also do work for the city under the mayor's administration. So it's not just something that's done randomly. You just don't, step onto somebody else's property and cut a tree down. It's all done with, a communication between the homeowner and the city of New York. So there hasn't been any breach of that at all. Each and every one of these people have hired us to come onto their property to take care of the trees.
So you're being hired to cut down trees and everything like that?
Yeah, that have been they've been assessed as being damaged or dying, or insect infestation, or if the branches need to be pruned. They could be hit by lightning. There could be a windstorm. There could be a myriad of different things. Many times the sidewalks are being broken up by the tree roots. You see them. They'll also damage the sewer lines underground. They can also damage the lines going into the electrical lines that are underground. And they can also damage, such as a cesspool or a septic tank that are also underground. And those roots, sometimes they also need to be pruned back. There's almost a correlation, they call it a drip line, of the size of a tree is almost, as you see it above ground, is almost equal to the area below ground where the roots extend out. So that could go disrupt somebody's plumbing or disrupt their foundations. It can break up their sidewalks. So in many of these situations, trees are often diseased and need to be removed and taken down. And many of them live for many, many centuries, and many trees, they're damaged, they're not quite there, so inbred now, many of the trees that are being put on the sides of road between like a sidewalk and the street, that little meridian, that they don't even stand up sometimes to high winds.
Well, let the record show anyway. Some of the people on that list, he didn't have permission for, that's one. And let the record also show, I do know the congressmen. I do know the assemblymen, okay? And I do know everybody on the community board. Because not only do I go to the meetings, you know, they look for me because they know I'm going to do something. They know I'm going to get the job done. I usually work peacefully. I don't get tough unless you make me go there. Not unless unless you put me there. That's the only time I get a little rattled, or if I see somebody crying like Ms. Greenbound or anybody, or Mr. Flelch, you know, Mr. Flelch too. You know what I mean? So, I don't know.
So if he's technically, as he's saying, helping you by removing these trees, do you have anything to say to that, to the fact that he says he's helping you? Do you think he is helping you, or do you think that the trees would be better off there?
Listen, I didn't feel the help. Maybe if he would have came to me and we could have worked together or worked something out instead of him just doing these things on his own, or like he said he was too busy to come to a meeting or whatever he's trying to say now. He didn't say that before, okay? And all he had to do, he couldn't even give us a list of things, what he's doing or how he's doing it, or even said this at a meeting, and then maybe it would have calmed some of the people down. Maybe they wouldn't have had to draw up a petition. Maybe they wouldn't have had to get upset or cry or, you know. Lady practically fainted. The other one, he practically had a heart attack over his trees and his grounds and stuff. This stuff was beautiful to them. They look forward to seeing this. Trees give shade too and beauty and everything. Maybe if he would have just worked it a little different or a little better instead of, being sneaky or whatever he was doing or whatever you want to call it, Because, if he's a tree hugger, I just want him to act like a tree hugger. Okay. If he's in our community, then he has to work with us like he in the community. Don't just say this because we in front of you. I want some proof. I want some action. I don't want to just hear no story. Mary had a little lamb. None of that. I want a real story, a real fact, a real truth. I want to come away with something when I get out of here.
Mm-hmm. Well, as you said, the trees do provide shade, and some more things that trees do so that and maybe are careful and pay more attention, Gordon, to what you're chopping down, and make sure that you know what you're doing. That trees provide shelter for animals. That was said before. They like you said, in certain places, owls are in there, squirrels are there. They keep their nuts there. Birds build nests. Trees, bees can sometimes build hives in there. Mm-hmm. It also reduces air pollution because photosynthesis, they take in all of the CO2 and release oxygen. Yes. It also encourages a lot of outdoors activities. For example, when I was younger, I know that it's true for many people, trees they can be fun. You can climb them if you want to. Yeah. And you mentioned that a lot of the kids got them excited about trees. Yes. And they also help reduce energy costs by influencing wind speed and reducing glare for some places. Mm. So it's energy efficient as well. They also absorb CO2 and sulfur dioxide and release the oxygen, like I just said. Yes. If you didn't know, we breathe oxygen, so it's helping us either way. Yes. And a fun fact, I guess, is that one single large tree, and a large tree isn't that large since trees are large in the first place, can produce a day of oxygen for 4 people. So that's quite a bit of oxygen, and considering the air, the pollution in the air, the state we're in now, we need as many trees as we can. So when you're killing these trees, even if they're dead, then they're not going through photosynthesis. They're not using all of the CO2. So that makes sense for you to be cutting down dead trees. But even if they're a little sick, and if they're especially still alive, then they're still doing a great deal for a community.
Well, one of the services that we also offer, Your Honor, in addition to the tree removal, is planting of different specimen trees which would be appropriate for a certain property. You don't want to have a tree that's wanting to grow like 80, 90 feet and put them underneath electrical wires. And as far as being in any way, this is very sad to say that I'm sneaking around. To cut down a tree, you have to have ladders, a large truck, chainsaws, noisy. It's very, very noisy. It's not easily sneaking around a community. And part with Miss Jones, when we're on a job site working, that we only have so many hours in a day, and we totally respect the community and people. And as I said earlier, community meetings and outreach are very important, but to say that I'd be sneaking around the neighborhood, it's very hard to sneak around a neighborhood with several workmen, a large truck, and with noisy chainsaws.
I didn't see you when you cut it down.
And these are also people that have called us to come onto their property to do this work, to do it properly. And as I said, we also offer, replanting of trees also.
Okay. So when you say replanting of trees, where are you replanting them? Are you placing them in place of the ones that you cut down, or are you just
you really,
trees, or?
Well, quite often we'll plant them further away from the home and the residents, and also the appropriate type of tree. Some people like dogwood trees, which is very similar to this lily that you have right here in the courtroom here today, Your Honor. Beautiful fruit trees, flowering plants, different trees, and more appropriate would be off a distance would be like oak trees or pine trees that are going to grow, for several hundred years and be over 100 feet high. So you'd want to have them in appropriate areas, certain trees.
Okay.
You wouldn't want to put it exactly where a diseased tree had died. It could be underground sometimes. Going into people's homes, there are gas leaks. If people have gas going into their homes, sometimes there's pollution underground that who knows what could be there. Sometimes there are oil tanks that are underground, they leak. There's all sorts of different reasons why a tree would die and be poisoned.
Mm-hmm. Well, just so that you know, by New York state law, no property owner by any means is permitted to allow a tree, shrub, any plant, in this case we're talking about trees, growing on their property or near their property to obstruct or interfere with the view of drivers. So this is more moving away from the fact that it'll hurt people, just obstruct, well, either way it's going to hurt people, but it's the fact that they're obstructing the view of the drivers' vehicles or pedestrians in any way on the sidewalk to create a traffic hazard. So things like traffic hazards, if they're in the way or if they're just pose a threat, then that's a reason to cut it down. But if it's not doing any of those things, there's no reason to cut the tree down, obviously, unless it's dying or dead. And if it does affect anything, the property owner can prune the tree. So property owners are allowed to prune the trees. They're allowed to cut them down if they need to so that they don't obstruct the tree. Because I think it's a better decision to either cut the tree down or prune it than it is to hurt somebody or to get a ticket by the law. So by law, you're required to prune it anyways. Do you understand?
Yes.
Okay. And however, there's a lot of, for example, you have to provide clear space around it. You can't hurt anyone else's. Like, you're not allowed to hurt anyone else's property. If you cut a tree and it lands in someone else's property, obviously you're still going to be responsible for that. So these house owners, if they're having trees and other things like that who are obstructing view or doing anything that is illegal, then Gordon does have the right to, but still, and overall, cutting down trees is not a good thing. Cutting down trees is, like I said, they provide shelter. They encourage outdoor activities, which we need a lot for youth these days.
Yes.
They absorb CO2. They give us oxygen. So no matter what, cutting down these trees is affecting the environment. So I would like to ask, have you, Ms. Jones, has Gordon cut down any of your trees, or are you speaking just for the rest of the community, not yourself?
Well, when he did cut down the other neighbor's tree, the stuff fell in my yard, and I didn't see where he came to get it. And I don't even know why he cut the tree or cut it down or whatever. That's one of the people that's on the list. So, I don't know. I like I said, I was fighting for myself and for the community and other people. Mm-hmm. So I'm surprised because what he's saying about trees and what he's doing about trees is just two different things. And for him to be so educated with what he's saying today, I'm surprised that he went the way he went. So that's why I had to come where I went, okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Now, I just would like to know, because that affects city authorizations and city grants.
Yes.
In your community, is it that you live in a wetland, anywhere near a wetland or a natural habitat or anything, or is it just like rural area?
Yeah, well, it's around here like he said. Mm-hmm. It's around here, through here,
Okay.
Yeah.
So because it would actually be a worse of a case for both parties.
Yeah.
If you live in a wetland or national habitats, because in New York they have to do anything to removing any healthy tree. or anything within 6 inches, so that's not a lot of leeway for large trees. They have to obtain city authorization before doing anything to it. They can't prune it, they can't take anything from it because it's from a natural habitat, and the city does have places where they like to conserve. Now, I don't know if the area you exactly live in, the city is a place to conserve, but if it's around here in Flushing, then there isn't very many like big parks here that I know of. There's a lot of there's a lot of specifications, like diameter of tree that you have to, like for example, if it's under 6 inches, you can't, and it's unhealthy, it has to be over 6 inches in diameter for homeowners to need to present a letter from a certified arborist confirming that fact so that they can then take it down. So you said that you have complaints from these people that you are taking down the trees like within the law.
Would you repeat that, Your Honor?
You said that, for example, if somebody had a tree that's 6 inches or more in the wetland or anywhere near a park, and the tree is unhealthy, and a homeowner has presented a letter from a certified arborist confirming that fact, you're one of those people who have gotten one of those letters and have to take it down.
Oh, of course, yes. Okay. Everything is done.
So everything is certified and everything.
It has to be done properly. As Your Honor, there's no such thing as sneaking around with a crew of workers and a truck. You've got to be certified by the city.
He did. I don't care how much the thing makes noise or whatever. He did, because I look around all the time. And he did. He snuck. Come on, at least a couple. Why would they write that? All of them saying they didn't hear you or hear the bus or whatever. I don't know. I know machines is noisy, you know. I just want you to do something about him. You know, he's picking my last nerve at this point. All right? So do something about him and his cutting self, okay? That's all I came here for, me and for the people. All right? Us tree lovers.
Well, okay. Well, I guess you're both tree lovers, and that means, Gordon, you know that. Do you realize like what you're doing to the environment? Like, although they might be unhealthy or anything, do you realize that you're not only cutting down, not only are the trees, also I didn't mention that they're good for aesthetics. So.
But also, Your Honor, that we also are replanting trees. Many trees, different species, as I said earlier. Some of them that are appropriate ornamental type trees. As you said earlier, they offer shelter year-round. The evergreen trees that are really not being replanted, and there's a great need for that. The evergreen trees, the pine trees that provide food and shelter for the animals in the winter, the hawks, the different birds and everything. And it's also a nesting place for them. It provides shelter for them too. Those are trees that need to be replaced. Quite often you'll see many people take their Christmas trees and they'll actually have a Christmas tree in their house at Christmas time with the root ball and everything, and in the spring they'll plant it out in their yard, and we provide that service also to assist homeowners.
Well, I'd like to give my verdict that you become a volunteer of the Sister Girls organization so that you can give back to your community. So thank you.
Good, because I'll see you at the next meeting.
And please come to the meetings.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Was great. There were so many great points that we brought out.
Yeah,
for the kids.
You are so educated, and you did around. You got it. I ain't mad at you.
No, but it was great because you really prompted the great questions. You really prompted, you know, a good discourse, because what it's about, right, Linda, is about the kids watching the show to give them knowledge.
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't even think about that. Like
and
the
people
whole,
don't. And
like,
people don't know. It could be a gas leak on your home.
I like that you pointed that.